Hello everyone, this is Helen H. and welcome to my channel, Moss Cottage. Today I have a video using some of the jelly plates, jelly prints that I made in my last two videos, I believe. And I think maybe there's some others in here that I had made previously, and I'm not using all the ones that I had made in the last two videos either. I just took a compilation of ones that had printing gel prints on both the front and the back. Some of the ones that I had done that I showed you last time, I had only done one side, and I want to make them into a little journal, a little art journal. And the great thing about turning jelly prints into an art journal is you automatically have a background, already. You don't have to worry about what are you going to put behind there. You can just get on with your stamping and collaging, or whatever else you're going to be putting in your art journal. So what I did was, most of the papers that I had used were either the newspaper print or actual copy paper, like Xerox paper. So they're quite light, quite thin, although having the acrylic paint on them makes them a little bit more stable, but they're still quite thin. So my jelly print is a 9 by 12. So your journal, if you make one, is going to be based on the size of your jelly plate. So what I did, when I was using these very large pieces of, some of these very large pieces of cardstock that I have, and you can see my 9 by 12 jelly plate left quite a border around there. So what I did was I just cut right around the outside to make a 9 by 12-ish piece. And this, I used this one. And this one I did show in the video, making this one. And this is what my homemade alphabet stamp. So I'm using this for the cover because this is the cardstock one. All these other prints that I have in here are the thinner papers. So just to save time, I didn't want to show you how I cut the papers to size. I cut the inner ones smaller than 9 by 12, just so when they're folded over, this creep here, this is creep where your pages get wider and wider due to the thickness in here. They creep out. Now, if that bothers you, you can simply go ahead and take a straight edge like this and a craft knife and just keep cutting until you get a nice smooth edge. It doesn't bother me, and as a matter of fact, instead of cutting my edges, I tore them, so there is a little bit of roughness there, so I don't really mind the creep there, but I don't want it creeping out of my cover. So they're cut short enough so that even when they're folded up together like this, they're not sticking out of the side of the cover, and neither from the top or bottom. So depending on the size of your jelly plate, you're just going to have to work out. When I had originally cut all these, they were too long, so I had to tear some smaller pieces off just to get them to fit inside what I'm going to use for the cover. So I like the cover, I like the way it looks, but it's a little bit plain. So before we bind it, and hopefully I'll have time to do this in one video, but before we bind it, I wanted to do a little stenciling. Even though it's got some stenciling and design on the front, I wanted to do a little more stenciling, and then I'm going to show you something in the next video, making some embellishments with your jelly plates. So I have some stencils I picked out. This is not any like fancy one. I just think I got that at a thrift shop. And then this one is a Christy Tomlinson one, and it's these flowers and stems. They're kind of, what is the word? They're stylized kind of flowers and stems, but the flowers don't join the stems, so you can pick the stem with the flower you want. I'm actually just going to go with the stems for right now. So I'm going to see, I'm using black, golden black carbon or carbon black paint here. I want a little bit more. Now remember, when you use a stencil, you don't want to use a lot of paint on your brush or your sponge. I like to use a sponge, one of these little makeup sponges. So that's what I'm going to use. And I'm not going to really worry about this, because if if something happens and I screw it up, I can always just cover it up with something else. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this stem here in the middle. And this particular stencil is not very thick. This Christy Tomlinson one is not very thick, so we're just bumping up and down. So I think also I'm going to get some different paint here. Here's some more liquid paint. That golden is old and it's quite thick and gunky, so I'm going to switch to some lighter, more fluid paint. Let's see if that helps a little bit. Yeah, that helps a lot. So I'm just going to do the stems here. And usually if I was doing a light background like this one, I would prefer to use Payne's Gray, but for some reason I just picked the black. So there's my stem there. I bled over there a little bit. I don't care. I can cover that up with something else. So now I'm going to go over here and do another one. Now these stems on this are all the same height, but you know, you don't have to stamp the whole thing. I'm going to go a little bit lower and only use half the stencil on this side so that my flowers are not going to be all the same size. So I'm just going to do that. See? And actually, you know, the black or Payne's Gray does add, really add something, makes the cover pop. And then I'm going to do another one of these funky little stems here. And I'm going to do some more, I'll do some more videos with gel printing because I've been watching some videos on gel printing since I made my last ones, and I've learned some really cool new techniques that I'm dying to try. Okay, so then I've just got the 3 black stems with no flowers. That's fine. We're going to leave that the way it is. I'm just going to move my stencil over here, and I'm going to get this other one. And from this one, I want the word create because this is going to be an art journal. So I think I want the word create up here in this corner here. So same thing, you know how to stencil. Just get very little paint and pounce it on, and you can always go back and add more if you need to, but if you use too much paint, you know, it's going to bleed underneath and you won't get such crisp lines, which is okay if you know, if you don't want them so crisp, that's okay. Okay. So there we go. So there's my create. Okay, and there's my little flower stems there. All right, I'm going to put that stuff to the side, and we're going to do the binding of this thing. So let me just move this out of the way. Now what I did, I'm just going to put that to the side for 1 second and let it dry a little bit. What I did with my inside papers, after I cut them to size-ish, they're not all perfectly the same. Some are a little bit shorter, some are bigger. It just depends on how the print pulled. This one right here, I really like the colors on this one, but the top is torn, but I don't care as long as it fits in there because this is an art journal. So what I did was I started with an inner page that I liked, and then I folded it in half. And then I picked another jelly plate that somewhat at least complements the colors. They're not going to be the same because otherwise your entire book is going to be the same colors. But this greeny blue here, and it's got brown spots, kind of goes with the blue and brown here. So then the back side of this one is like a brighter blue and green, and then I've got blue and green here. So what I did, this one's green and blue and purple, but this one kind of has some purple and blue in it. See, I mean, they're not going to be exactly the same, but I'm not going to have something so clashing like having that light pink with that orange, you know. And for this book, I'm not going to do whole page spreads because they're not the same, but I still don't want my eye to be like so confused when it sees the paper. So I'm trying to pick ones that kind of work with each other, the back of one to the middle of the other, if that makes any sense. If not, you can let me know and I'll try explain it a little bit better. Okay, so then I just kind of put them together. I did crease each of them first. I know Susanne, was it Susanne Rose Art? She made this little book and she folded her papers all together at the same time. But when I make my journals, even a traveler's notebook or whatever that I'm binding with thread, I like to fold each page separately to get a nice sharp crease here, okay? So I'm going to take my cover and I'm going to take my papers and I'm going to make sure my papers are inside, not touching the top and not touching the bottom. There's a tiny little gap. Can you see that? There's a tiny little gap up here and there's one on the bottom because I don't want my pages sticking out the top or the bottom. So I'm just going to put them in there and open it up and then clip it. And I've got all kinds of clips that I can use. Right now I'm just going to use these black binder clips and I'm clipping the papers in place. And some people can do this just using one clip. And I'm making sure each time that the spine is pressed into the spine of the cover. But I tend to overkill and use, sorry, I'm opening them with my mouth. I tend to overkill and clip them at a lot of locations just to make sure they're not going anywhere. Okay. All right, that looks good. And I know I have a video way back when, I don't know when, where I showed how to do a three stitch pamphlet stitch or binding. So this is my little pokey tool. You can use this, you can use an awl. I do have an awl somewhere on my desk, but I like this pokey tool because it's very thin at the tip and where am I? Here. It's very thin at the tip and then it goes wider at the bottom. So I can actually make the hole tiny or I can make it wide. The problem with an awl is it's pretty much wide. At least mine is. So what I'm going to do now, I know that this is 9-ish inches from top to bottom. So I'm going to just take a ruler and I'm going to mark very lightly, get my pencil here, at 4.5. That would be the middle point. And I'm measuring off the cover, not the insides. Okay, that's my middle point there. Okay, and then I think I will go in from the cover. I'm coming in 1 inch on each side. So I'll go here. But you can eyeball this. You don't have to be as precise with it. You can do, more. You can bring it in more or less, whatever you want. You probably don't want it too close to the edge or it might tear out. The thing might tear out. Okay, so I've got my marks here. So I'm going to take my little pad and my pokey tool and I'm just going to go ahead. And what I usually do is hold this up as a V to keep these papers down in the spine here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going down into the middle and I'm poking a hole. And I always lift it up to make sure that it's gone all the way through. And then I'm doing it here. Yep, that went through. And then, oops, my thing moved. Okay, here. And that went through. Okay, so we can put that up and we can put that out of the way so I don't accidentally stab myself with it. All right, so I've got my 3 holes. I know you probably can't see them. I'm holding them up against the light. I'm sitting in front of a window and I can see the light through it, so I know that they're all the way through. Now I use this is waxed thread. I don't know if it's waxed linen, but it is a waxed thread. And generally when I do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, I use 3 lengths of my book. Some people use 2.5, and if you're limited on supplies, you might want to go with 2.5, but I like to give myself 3 because it gives me some time to, or some extra to tie it off, because I can't tie tiny little thread ends. It just drives me nuts. I need to have a pretty good thread end. So what I'm going to do, I want my book to tie in the middle. I don't want it to be tied on the outside. I want it to be tied on the inside. Do I? I'm thinking now, this is a book. This is, no, you know what? I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to have it tie on the outside, because if it's an art journal, I don't want the things on the inside. So to start from, if you want it tying on the outside, you're going to start by pushing the needle from the outside in. And you just kind of have to work that to get it through a little bit. And you're going to leave yourself a tail, okay? Then you can go to the top and go from the inside to the outside there, like that. Okay, it came in this hole and up and out that hole. Now I'm going all the way down to the bottom and going back in. And I'm bringing it up. And I've got to make sure here that this little thread here is nice and tight. And then I'm going back through that middle hole. Okay, I'm going back through that middle hole. Now, when you come back out the outside, the starting hole that where I went in is on the left side of this spine, you know, where it comes all over the spine. So this time I want it to come up through the right side, because I want to straddle my spine thread here. I want to straddle it with the two threads here. Does that make sense? I hope so. And if not, there's plenty. There's a gazillion videos on how to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I pulled it taut here. Now, if you're going to use jelly prints for the cover and you're not going to be using cardstock, you want to be kind of careful that you don't pull it so tight that you tear your cover. So I'm pulling it tight, but I'm not pulling it so tight that I'm tearing through. See, now I can tell that this is not tight enough. There should not be any slack there, so I need to pull these ends a little tighter. This here should not be loose, so I'm going to have to work that a little bit more to make sure I get it a little bit tighter. Okay, now it's okay. I'm satisfied with that. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie it once, twice, and I always do 3 times for a charm, although if you're using wax thread, twice should be sufficient because the wax really grabs. If you're using baker's twine or embroidery floss or something like that, you might want to go ahead and tie it 3 times. But now I have the option here. Can you see all this extra here? Now I have the option here, which I'm thinking I might tie some beads or something on there. So that's my little journal right here. And I'm not going to finish the cover with you till next time, because that's a whole different topic, okay? We're going to be making some embellishments using our jelly plates, or jelly prints. And I'm not going to probably do a video on the beading. There's plenty of videos on how to bead the side. But I will, the next time we will finish the cover, and maybe we will either do a page inside it. I'll show you how, how to do a page inside it, or I'll do a page and just show you. But these are so fun. Look at all the colors, guys. And if you want to just decoupage a picture and put a sentiment on, you already have these great backgrounds to put them on. And it's something to do with all those fun jelly plate prints that you made. So I just wanted to show you how you can make this quick, fun little booklet or art journal. I think I used 12 pages in here. I wouldn't go too much more than that, unless you're going to maybe make more than one signature and then put these signatures in a bigger book, because when you do the collaging and everything, it is going to get kind of full. I'm not going to be putting embellishments in there that are like 3-dimensional, but even just collaging and stuff will add some bulk to it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that you are doing some jelly plates. And I never said this, and I'm kind of leery to say this, but I'm going to say this with a caution to you, okay? And no children should be watching this video to begin with, because it's for 18 and older. But it took me a long time before I actually purchased a jelly plate, because they are expensive. I didn't know what size I wanted, blah, blah, blah. It was just something that I wanted to save up for before I purchased one. I still wanted to make some jelly plates even without it. Now, you can make your own, and I think I mentioned that in the other video. There's lots and lots of videos how to make your own. But what I was actually using was a piece of 8 by 10 glass out of a picture frame. Yes, I know it's dangerous because it's glass. It's not tempered. It could break. I was super careful with it. I always kept it flat on my desk, and I pushed it to one side, and anything that was on my desk was sitting on top of it so it couldn't just fall off. And the first thing I did when I took it out of the frame was I surrounded the edges with masking tape 2 times all the way around the edges to make sure that I wouldn't cut myself. And I actually used that for quite a while before I purchased my own jelly plate. But so if you're not sure if you want a jelly plate or you just are saving your pennies for one, my recommendation is to actually buy a jelly plate or make one. But if you absolutely cannot wait, then you might want to do it with the glass or even a piece of plexiglass. That would probably even be safer. So I hope you like this video. I can't wait till we do the next video and we beef up the cover here and maybe work in the pages. And until then, guys, I hope that you are truly blessed. Please like and subscribe this video. And I hope you're doing some jelly plating too. Bye, guys.